Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So first up today, Lex uploaded his interview with Walter Isaacson, and we got some interesting takeaways. They talked a lot about the pain and the rough childhood that Elon had growing up. They shared anecdotes like when Elon was beat up pretty badly as a kid, he was hospitalized for a week, and then when Elon got home, his dad Errol then berated him for more than an hour, taking the side of the bully. Later in life, there were some anecdotes shared like around the Tesla verge of bankruptcy times in 2008 when Elon's former wife said that he was so stressed he would vomit at times. And Walter said it's some of Elon's childhood trauma that he's actually channeling and using as extra motivation and drive, paired with the way Elon is wired, which is he's addicted to risk and adventure and intensity, which is again why he gets so much stuff done. And one deep note, they were talking about how Elon's empathy toward humanity is greater than empathy toward individuals. This gives Elon the ability to be a tough boss and to fire people, understanding it's for the greater good of the mission. Walter said, quote, "Elon is driven by mission more than any person I've ever seen, and it's not only missions, it's like cosmic missions."
I see it all the time when I'm walking the factory lines with him or in product development, where he'll look at, say, the heat shield under the Raptor engine of a Starship booster. And he'll say, why does it have to be this way? Couldn't we trim it this way or make it, or even get rid of this part of it? And he can visualize the material science. There's small anecdotes in my book, but at one point he's on the Tesla line and they're trying to get 5,000 cars a week in 2018. Mm-hmm. It's a life or death situation. And he's looking at the machines that are bolting something to the chassis. And he insists that that Lars Moravy, one of his great lieutenants, come, and they have to summon him. And he says, why are there 6 bolts here? And Lars and others explain, well, for the crash tests or anything else, the pressure would be in this way, so you have to. And they were blah, 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 blah. And he said, no, if you visualize it, you'll see if there's a crash, the force would go this way and that way, and it could be done with 4 bolts. Now, that sounds risky, and they go test it and they engineer it, but it turns out to be right. I know that seems minor, but I could give you 500 of those, where in any given day, he's visualizing the physics of an engineering or manufacturing problem. That sounds pretty mundane. But for me, if you say, what makes him special? There's a mission-driven thing. I give you a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is he cares not just about the design of the product, but visualizing the manufacturing and of the product, the machine that makes the machine. I think you're also right on 50, 100 years from now, what Musk will be most remembered for besides space travel is real-world AI. Not just Optimus the robot, but Optimus the robot and the self-driving car. They're pretty much the same. They're using, GPU clusters or dojo chips or whatever it may be to process real-world data. We all got, and you did on your podcast, quite excited about large language model, generative, predictive text AI. That's fine, especially if you want to chit-chat with your chat bot. But the holy grail is artificial general intelligence. And the tough part of that is real-world AI. And that's where Optimus the robot or full self-drive are, I think, far ahead of anybody else.
Since a few years ago, when you could see with Andrej Karpathy, the software 2.0 evolution of autopilot, it became obvious to me that this is not about the car. This is about Optimus, the robot. This is like, if we look back 100 years from now, the car will be remembered as a cool car, nice transportation, but the autopilot won't be the thing that controls the car. It will be the thing that allows embodied AI systems to understand the world. So broadly. And so that kind of approach, and you kind of stumble into it. Will Tesla be a car company? Will it be an AI company? Will it be a robotics company? Will it be a home robotics company? Will it be an energy company? And you kind of slowly discover this as you confidently uh, push forward with a vision.
Which one will Tesla become? Well, probably all of the above. The full conversation will be below. Over the weekend, thanks to the updated user manual for the new Model 3, as we can see, it looks like there are no airbags for the knee area in the new version. I do want to add, this is not a guarantee for the North American version. That still may be slightly different in different aspects. Either way, I did just want to pass along this article from the IIHS. Some of their researchers have found little benefit from these knee airbags. They found not only do they have a negligible effect on injury risk, but they may even increase it in some cases. To everyone asking how the hazards will work when the trunk is open on the new Model 3, well, here is your answer. With the lights integrated to the trunk, now they have the lights down here below. We have a new questionable rumor from Car News China. According to a Tesla salesperson, Tesla might increase the Model Y price in China next month. They said the price hikes could be between $1,100 and $1,400 US, and that Tesla might even cancel the rear-wheel drive variant altogether. But here's why it's questionable. If you go on to read the rest of the article, they're also saying that the Model Y already has everything the new version of the Model 3 added. This is not true, and if you need one example, interior ambient lighting is not on the Model Y. For that reason, I wouldn't put too much stock into this report, but it's certainly possible. We got the Tesla production number for August, and it was 80,832, essentially in line with July. More importantly, looking at the production breakdown between Model 3 and Y, Model 3 production still relatively on par with where it's been, albeit slightly decreased, coming in at 21.3 thousand for the month of August. We'll see what September looks like, but it looks like Giga Shanghai is doing a pretty incredible job of maintaining the Model 3 production all the way through this Highland transition, because we know that there are now parking lots filling up with new Model 3s for export from Giga Shanghai. We got another excerpt from Walter Isaacson's upcoming biography on Elon Musk, and to everybody saying it's ruining the book, just remember the book's about 700 pages and we're only getting a few pages of a preview. In this one, we got some more context on the Bill Gates Elon Musk situation. In 2022, they were at a meeting together and Bill Gates said, "Hey, I'd love to come see you and talk about philanthropy and climate." Fast forward to March 9th of last year, and Bill Gates landed to visit Giga Texas. Then when Elon started to give Bill Gates a tour of the factory, Gates argued batteries would never be able to power large semi-trucks and that solar energy would not be a major part of solving the climate problem. Bill Gates said, "I showed him, Elon, the numbers. It's an area where I clearly knew something that he didn't." Despite this, Gates found himself impressed by the factory Elon had built and his detailed knowledge of every machine and process. Most of us know about Gates shorting Tesla stock, and by the time he arrived at the factory, he had lost about $1.5 billion. When Elon found out about the situation, he was obviously upset. Bill Gates said, "I did apologize to him, to Elon, but once he heard I'd shorted the stock, he was super mean to me, but he's super mean to so many people, so you can't take it too personally." Elon said, "How can someone say they're so passionate about fighting climate change and then do something that reduced the overall investment in the company doing the most? It's pure hypocrisy. Why make money on the failure of a sustainable energy car company?" After the visit, Bill Gates sent a text to Elon trying to talk about some of his philanthropic ideas for Elon. Elon's response to that text, "Do you still have a $500 million short position against Tesla?" To which Gates said yes, and then Elon said, "Sorry, I can't take your philanthropy on climate seriously when you have a massive short position against Tesla, the company doing the most to solve climate change." Reportedly, Bill Gates was puzzled about why Elon was upset about him shorting Tesla, which is odd. Then, right after this exchange, Elon texted Walter saying, "At this point, I'm convinced he, Bill Gates, is categorically insane. I did actually want to like him." Sigh. On X, Elon said, Gates also said the Tesla Semi was impossible, even though it was literally being driven all over the country. When I asked what battery watt-hour per kilogram and truck watt-hour per mile he was using to reach the conclusion that it's impossible, Gates had no idea, but still stuck with his conclusion. Here we have an unlikely source, CBS Sunday Morning, to potentially leak part of the design for the upcoming Robotaxi. So first we have this cardboard design. As you can see, it appears to have one row of seating, potentially for 2 people, with ample leg room, easy ingress and egress, the ability to get in and out, and it looks like right behind the seats there would be some room for suitcases and storage. I've also seen a lot of questions about why they would have a Robotaxi with only 2 seats. Don't forget, the rest of Tesla's fleet, the S3 XY, will also be able to operate as Robotaxis and will work just fine for families or people that want to travel in groups bigger than 2. So think about the millions of instances just one person or a couple will need a ride, and then Tesla will be able to make smaller, more affordable vehicles, use less batteries, they'll be lighter and more efficient, all of those benefits. But you may notice something over here on the left. I know you can't see these very well, but it looks like this could be an early prototype of the Robotaxi cyber futuristic field design. And I think it's this image that we're leading some people to believe it could be a 3-wheel vehicle. I do think that's unlikely, although yes, it would lead to things like lower rolling resistance. But I will say I'd be surprised if Tesla were to go the Aptera route. Then up top, it looks like this could be a shot of the rear. I do want to say though, if this really was a design for the Robotaxi, this could have been changed 100 times by now. We know Tesla has a huge library of drawings, sketches, and designs like this that never ultimately stick. But again, hopefully sometime next year we get an official unveiling event for the Robotaxi and the $25,000 Tesla. Replying to K10, Elon did say he has a copy of the book, but Walter recommended that he not read it. Over the weekend, Alex said a VW R&D board member said that VW makes no money with BEVs and is slowing down the introduction of new BEV models, saying for us, it's important not to overwhelm customers by moving too quickly into e-mobility. That's why our combustion engines make sense. Saying, quote, with competitors, you see that the focus on low-cost electric cars means they don't make money. The transformation is a slow process. And he said, along the way, the internal combustion engine has a right to exist, which is why we are once again investing heavily in technology with the Tiguan and the Passat. This is necessary to bring the masses along on the road to electromobility. Replying to Alex's post, Dr. Electron X said the goal of most auto manufacturers is to figure out how to wind down their businesses. I've been saying this about GM for a while. Others are starting to follow GM's lead. The words they say to the media is to keep stockholders from fleeing all at once. To which Elon said, if they don't switch to autonomous electric cars pronto, that is absolutely true. It may be a few years, but the electric and autonomous revolution will undoubtedly put some legacy car makers into the EV autonomous graveyard. Recently at the Fully Charged event, Sandy Monroe saw a VW logo, pointed at it, and said that they could be in the EV graveyard next. To that point, we have this. One of the top executives at VW was dispatched to China to review the competitive landscape, and his assessment was grim. He told the VW CEO that Europe's largest car maker was losing the electric vehicle race in its most important market and had no prospect of catching up on its own. Echoing Elon's words, VW risks getting confined to the waning market for combustion engine cars and lacking the volumes to support its bloated structure. For the last 5 years or so, we've heard how VW was going to catch Tesla in full BEV sales, but looking at Q2 2023, Tesla in the black, 466.1 thousand BEV sales, VW still sits at 145,000. So as of Q2 this year, Tesla is still more than tripling up VW in terms of full BEV sales globally. The boss of VW China said it's a marathon, and not everyone in a marathon who comes out fastest will be seen first or at all at the finish line. We're already seeing some of these last ditch type efforts from VW, them paying $700 million for about 5% of XPeng. And that XPeng deal was preceded by new cooperation agreements with a battery maker, an autonomous driving specialist, and an infotainment developer. Going back to that first quote, that VW's own executive does not think they can catch up at all on their own. What does that mean? Well, ultimately it adds a lot more complexity for VW and takes away a lot of those profit margins. So will Sandy be right again? With Tesla stock up over 10% today, at least part of it could probably be attributed to this from Adam Jonas and Morgan Stanley. They put out a new Tesla stock research note highlighting the benefits of Tesla Dojo, and they've upgraded their Tesla price target to $400. This would be about a 60% increase from their prior price target of $250 per share. I believe this is now the highest Tesla stock price target on the street, and this would give Tesla a valuation of about $1.4 trillion. Honestly though, guys, all this note really is Wall Street waking up to what many of us have now been talking about for months and years. He said, "We believe Dojo can add up to $500 billion to Tesla's enterprise value, expressed through a faster adoption rate in mobility, robotaxi, and network services, software as a service." The summary: with a highly experienced semiconductor team, Tesla has built a custom AI ASIC chip that, due to its core function of processing vision-based data for autonomous driving, it can operate more efficiently than the leading cutting-edge general-purpose chips on the market and at a fraction of the cost. Tesla pursues high vertical integration in key technology domains to enable high iteration and continual improvement while helping to diversify away from over-reliance on third-party suppliers that may not be able to provide an optimal solution for Tesla's specific needs. The more we looked at Dojo, the more we realized the potential for underappreciated value in the stock. We believe Tesla can reasonably test its all-time highs of $400 over the next 12 months. If you're not new to the channel, everything I just said really should just be a reiteration of what we've all known. They talk about Dojo changing things at Tesla, going from targeting just automotive to being multi-industry, training speed going from months to weeks, capital expenditure going from high single-digit billions down to low single-digit billions. Again, all things that we already know, but Morgan Stanley did say that they raised their bull case valuation to $550, up from $450 before. They said, "We believe Dojo can represent the next step change in market perception of Tesla. Longer term, we see scope for Dojo to provide avenues for Tesla's software and hardware capabilities to extend well beyond the auto industry. If Dojo can help make cars see and react, what other markets could open up?" With their calculations, when comparing what Tesla would have to spend on equivalent compute from NVIDIA, Dojo has the potential to drive $6.5 billion in cost savings for Tesla over the next few years. Then, despite those calculations, they said, "We have not given Tesla credit for specific cost savings from Dojo versus its current supercomputing budget, nor have we given Tesla credit for any non-auto related revenue streams." They also made no changes to their assumptions for Tesla Energy or Tesla Insurance. And finally, they said Dojo is designed to process visual data, which can lay the foundation for vision-based AI models like robotics, healthcare, and security. In our view, once Tesla makes headway on autonomy and software, third-party Dojo services can offer investors the next leg of Tesla's growth story. Replying to this note, Elon said almost all of Tesla's value long-term will be from AI and robots, both vehicle and humanoid. Believe it or not, parts of Wall Street are clearly waking up to the real Tesla story bit by bit. In the past 5 years, EVs have gone from 2% of new car sales in California to 22%. And I just wanted to show you this chart. If California were a country, it would be the 4th largest in terms of Q2 EV sales this year. So here we have the top 10 global EV markets, and we can see their EV share of new cars. Of course, Norway is still leading the way, but California should be leading the way and a sign of things to come for the rest of the United States, especially once we cross that 10% threshold. This one was actually from GM Authority, just showing us the luxury EV CUVs sold in the Q2 this year in the United States. 108.7 thousand vehicles total, 105.5 thousand of which were the Tesla Model Y. The Cadillac Lyriq in second place at a distant 1.3 thousand. From car sales in Australia, the Model Y has been crowned the winner of Best Electric Car for 2023. They narrowed down the field to 6 new or upgraded finalists priced under $89.3 thousand. The judges then analyzed these vehicles based on 100 criteria across 5 areas: safety, tech, comfort, convenience, driving performance, and ownership cost. The Model Y came up trumps after solid scores in all assessment areas. The Model Y is also the most searched electric car on carsales.com.au, followed by the Model 3. Heinrich Zane gave us an interesting scoop on an update for the Tesla Semi production and the Giga Nevada expansion. We do know most of the Megapack production has now been moved out of Gigafactory Nevada into Lathrop.
I have high degree of certainty that with this information I'm about to share, first week of August or so, in the midnight hour, under the cover of darkness, 17 semis arrived at the Tesla Gigafactory Nevada, and they brought in production equipment into these doors we're about to see. 17 full trucks, full truckloads, trailer loads of semis, and where you see the 2 trailers backed up to the 3 loading doors, and we'll get back to it here in a second, and the wide door, a lot of production equipment went in there, and the rumor is that it's for semi production, sort of another prototype production line, but maybe more automated. Semi-production has been moved up to the compound. I don't believe they're starting it. I believe they're waiting for the new version, and then they will.
So we're getting closer to actual semi-production from Giga Nevada, because to date, the pilot Tesla semi line is not actually in this building, but I believe it's within a few miles of this building. And sometime soon, we should actually begin to see construction at this site where they expand this facility to allow for that semi-production. Here we have another excerpt from the Walter Isaacson book. This Deval Shroff is a member of Tesla's autopilot team, and by the early 2023, the Neural Network Planner project, the end-to-end V12, had analyzed 10 million clips of video collected from the cars of Tesla customers. And yes, Tesla is still using human labelers, many of them based in Buffalo, New York, and they assess the videos and give them grades. More on this in a second. Shroff had been showing Elon instances in where a neural network planner end-to-end V12 would work better than a rules-based approach. They had a demo littered with trash cans, fallen traffic cones, etc., and he said, here's what happens when we move from rules-based to a network path-based. The car will never get into a collision if you turn this thing on, even in unstructured environments. Elon got pumped about the idea and then said, I want the latest data on miles per intervention to be the starting slide at each of our meetings. And he told the team to make it like a video game where they could see their score every day, so it would be motivating to watch each day as the miles per intervention increases. So members of the team installed a massive 85-inch television monitor in their workspace that displayed in real time how many miles the FSD cars were driving on average without interventions. They put a gong near their desks, and whenever they successfully solved the problem causing an intervention, they got to bang the gong. In a conversation about this end-to-end model, the team found that the neural network did not work well until it had been trained on at least 1 million video clips. Luckily, on that point, James Dauma just talked to Herbert. Full video will be linked below, and James said that as the system gets better, the number of clips that Tesla needs to train on will be fewer and fewer. It just becomes a game of finding the highest quality and curating what data Tesla is actually using to train the neural nets. And what's cool with the end-to-end system, according to James, is let's say Tesla is trying to solve for one specific stoplight situation. Well, in those videos, the neural network is still going to learn from everything else in the scene that's going on, not just that one little instance. James did clarify that V12 is being built on top of a lot of the framework from V11 and prior versions, so no, Tesla has not thrown away everything that it did before. V12 is built on a legacy of the system that Tesla had, but they've impressively found a way to take out most of the remaining code and glue all of the networks together. So now the neural nets can begin to solve problems that engineers couldn't solve on their own. And James did say say, the competition can't start out end to end. You can only get there incrementally like Tesla has done. And we know Tesla is planning to release shadow mode if they haven't already. That'll be pushed most likely to all cars to gather data even when those cars are driving manually. Pair that with Tesla hiring FSD drivers globally to then collect specific data for V12. And the data collection will be different with V12, focusing on gathering different types of video data, because before, Tesla didn't care as much about what the driver was doing. They were just capturing the video because the manual code would ultimately control the output. So now Tesla needs to collect a new video database, because now they need to train for the part that goes all the way to the end user controls what the human is doing in these situations. And now the human labelers that Tesla is still using, they're actually curating the dataset rather than labeling or approving the auto labeling of objects like before. Because again, it's all about quality video data.
We'll see how they do with this stuff, but I don't think they're anywhere near where Tesla is right now. And I don't think the infrastructure they've put in place or the compute they have in the vehicles is capable of doing that. Like, they're going to have to come up with a different way to do it, and they're going to have to prove it. It's a research project. It's not a turn the crank thing. So if someone's asking a question, well, how soon after Tesla does what they do, will somebody else just do what they did? Okay. How long will it take a competitor to put 4 million instrumented vehicles on the road and then run them for 2 years to gather all the data and then train the neural network? Like, even if you knew everything Tesla was doing, even if they published the source code and shared what they were doing, a competitor's got to build a fleet of vehicles. They got to get them out there. They got to run them for years because they got to turn the data engine crank to get the thing going. And then at the end of that, then they get results that Tesla's doing. Now, it might be a little faster, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, maybe the computers are faster and that kind of stuff. But, how long does it take to build 4 million cars or 1 million cars and put all the instrumentation on them out there? That's not something that happens in a year, right? That's probably not something that happens in 3 or 4 years, given, the build rates at a lot of the competitors. So, the idea that someone is going to see what Tesla did and then they're going to go do it a year later, like, that's not going to happen. Something else could happen. It's certainly possible. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't see any other players that are capable of putting a system in an OEM vehicle, a privately owned vehicle, and putting it out there. I don't see any of them building the infrastructure necessary to close the gap in less than, 3 years, 5 years, something like that. I mean, I would say that would kind of be the minimum. And I'd be surprised if somebody did it 5 years after Tesla did, but it'll depend on how the technology moves. The tech moves really fast every year, and surprising things happen. Tesla adapts to these surprises. Everybody else adapts to the surprises. And some of the surprises, they may open the gap with Tesla, and some of them might close the gap. It's hard to say. Not only do you need a million cars out there, a really large population of cars driving this stuff. And just to be clear, it's not the 400,000 FSD cars that are important one. All of the, there's 4 million Teslas out there driving around that have the hardware that they can gather data with this stuff. Because for this kind of stuff, and for a lot of the regular FSD stuff as well, the FSD 11, FSD 10 perception and whatnot, any car that's instrumented, you can gather data from. It doesn't have to be driving on FSD. As we were mentioning before, the quality of the data really matters. So you can't just hoover up, for instance, say that you had 1 million cars out there and they were just driving around recording stuff, but they didn't have the capacity to run FSD. You just had cameras on cars and you just have all this data. Well, first of all, you can't ingest all that data. You can't store all that data. Video is really big. It takes insane amounts of storage. I think, as Elon had commented today, just storing the stuff that they want to store, the stuff that's actually useful, takes mind-boggling amounts of storage. And if you're just going to store everything that a lot of cars come from, like, it's not doable. You can't do that. There's not enough storage. There's not enough bandwidth. That's not a practical approach to trying to solve this problem. Tesla's approach was to get filters out there. The cars are smart. You can tell the cars what you want, and they go find just that stuff and they send it to you. So you don't get, if a car drives for an hour, you don't get an hour of video from all 8 cameras. You get 10 seconds of video of the one thing that you really wanted to see, that you needed to add to your data. So that's a really critical component of this. The fleet is a search engine. It's not a tape recorder, right? It's not just recording stuff.
And one last big takeaway for me from this conversation was James was talking about even if a competitor hypothetically were to solve FSD shortly after Tesla does, it's not like they're really going to be eating into Tesla's market share. The market is so huge, the TAM is massive, so it's going to be a long time before we start to see any competition eating away at each other's market share in a robotaxi market. So there will undoubtedly be a major first mover advantage for presumably Tesla, but even if somebody else were to figure it out a year or two later, which is very unlikely, it's not really going to matter that much for Tesla's market share because the market is so big. Even the mighty Tesla can't produce enough robotaxis fast enough to saturate this market for many, many years to come. Just like the Model S and X, the new Model 3, when this feature is enabled, has the ability to allow it to use inputs from sensors to select drive or reverse automatically. But yes, this feature can be left off entirely, and it can be overridden by pressing the brake and then using the actual manual buttons to select your gear. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. You can find me on X, linked below. Please like the video if you did, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.